What's up, rampaging tyrannosaurs of the internet? It's Peter here. I'm a speculative fiction writer, the publisher behind Brainjar Press, and today I'd like to talk about a little line that I produce through Brainjar Press called the Writer Chaps series. Now, I bang on an awful lot about writing. I do it here in my videos. I do it a lot on my blog. I've been known to publish the occasional book about it. But one of the things I think is really important about becoming a writer and paying attention to writing advice is you never actually get all your advice from one source. There are so many different approaches to writing, and so much great advice that can suit various different writers that it's really important to diversify where you're getting your information from and really paying attention to the different approaches that people are using. Anyone who tells you that there is one true way to write, anyone that is trying to offer you a really easy solution, do this thing and we will teach you how to plot, do this thing and you will have a #1 bestseller, is usually trying to sell you something. Admittedly, I'm doing that too, but I've spent a lot of time working in various nonprofits, teaching writers, talking to publishers, talking to established writers, and there really is no one way that anyone has built their career. So one of my goals as a publisher was to go out and try and grab some of the great information and some of the great writing about writing that various people involved in Australian speculative fiction have done over the years. And a lot of these are people whose writing were really important to me when I first started writing fiction. A lot of them are people who I have first saw online in blogs back in the early 2000s, or ran into at conventions and furiously scribbled down notes when they were talking about their processes or about their approach to business. And the Writing Chaps line is really just kind of this ongoing series where I try to capture as many voices as possible. So it starts with a book called You Are Not Your Writing and Other Sage Advice from Angela Slatter, and gradually has accumulated 4 books. We're about to release our 5th. The second one was From Baby Brain to Writer Brain by Tansy Rayner Roberts, who is a fantastic fantasy writer, and despite its name, is not necessarily just a book I'd recommend to new parents, but really it's a book about managing your expectations and managing the demands on your time in a really busy and conflicted space where writing is not your own priority. I actually edited this book in the midst of the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was a fantastic book to be reading at that time or to be working on at that time, because a lot of the things Tansy was talking about in relation to how she rebuilt her process as a new mum also really translated incredibly well to trying to figure out how my writing process was going to work in the midst of all this chaos. The 3rd book in the series is Eyes on the Stars, Writing Science Fiction and Fantasy by the fantastic Australian Spec Fic writer Sean Williams. Sean's advice is some of the earliest that I came across when I was thinking about making a transition into fiction. One of his essays is actually the reason the Writer Chaps series exists. I talk about that a bit over on the Brainjar Press series. The most recent release is The Martial Art of Writing by Alan Baxter, who is a fantastic, awesome Australian horror author who writes some really great pulpy Australian horror. If you've never actually read his novella The Roo about a killer kangaroo in the Australian outback, I really urge you to think about it. And we're actually about to release our 5th book in this series, which is a book called Capturing the Ghosts on the Page by a truly terrifying Australian writer named Karen Warren, who is the kind of writer who you read their books in an evening and you're not going to sleep for the next 8 hours. But when you meet them in person at a conference, it's one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. So the Writer Chat series is kind of an ongoing thing. This is really just a brief introduction to where we're started. We've already got another 6 or 7 books lined up that are going to be running over the next couple of years. If you are interested in writing and you really want to get a really diverse number of point of views and approaches to the writing process, or running a writing business, then I really recommend checking it out. Thanks for your time.